Let's start. I think I'll hand over the speaker to our speakers today and let's get rolling.
I'm Utkarsh Vikram Singh and a very good morning to everyone over here.
I'm Ipshita Sharma and it's so nice to see you all here.
So first of all, thank you Ajay for setting up this stage for us. So a very good morning to everyone over here. So first of all, I would like to thank you all for coming here on this very first chilling weekend of 2024. And we hope that you take good insights from this session. So we'll be talking about who a functional consultant is, a brief history about functional consulting, followed by the challenges that a functional consultant faces in his or her daily job, right? Solutions to those challenges. And after that, my co-speaker, Ipshita, will talk about the roles and responsibilities of a functional consultant, the best practices that a functional consultant should follow. To make you understand better, we all have some of us would have got our house constructed. So what is the first thing that you want to have when you want to make your dream house? What is the first thing? Land. Any other?
Design of the building.
Sorry? Capital? Yes? Yes. So the prerequisite for getting your house constructed is land, the capital that you want for that. So let's assume that you all have that land and that capital to make that house. And I wish you soon have that, right? Now, who is the next person whom you are going to contact when you want to have your house constructed? Architect? Yes. So what does an architect do? Architect sits with you, he gathers your requirement, he pens down those requirements onto the floor plan and the design maps. After that, the architect sits with the structural engineers to ensure the strength of that house so that that house is robust. And when that consultation is done, those floor plans and designs are passed to the contractors and then they make that house. So in the similar way, in IT world, the functional consultant acting as that architect sits down with the client, gathers the requirements, pens those requirements down onto the business process diagrams, lucid charts, PPTs, and many others documentation which he or she does. Then he sits with the technical architects, technical leads to ensure that the product they are going to make is a robust one. Now, the functional consultant passes those requirements to the dev and the QA team in form of user story. Now, this is not where the job of a functional consultant ends. He is in contact with every stakeholder of the project. Those stakeholders can be internal, those stakeholders can be external, until the UAT is done and the project is delivered. So as you can see all on the screen, a functional consultant is a common point between everyone, from the dev team, from the QA, to the project managers, to the business owners and the business users. So this is what a functional consultant is, or who a functional consultant is. Now, I'll walk you through a brief history of functional consulting. With the timelines, in the year from 1970s to 1980s, the CRM and the ERP company came into existence. And why this company came into existence? They came and they unified the business processes and the business data of a company into a single platform. So you all will agree here, the ultimate aim of any business is to expand, be it small, be it large business. The ultimate goal is to expand. But with the expansion, the business processes become more complex. And with the time, the technology keeps on evolving. Even today, the technology is evolving day by day. So now, with rapidly growing business, the business processes becoming more complex, the technology is evolving, the gap between them was increasing. From 1980s to 1990s, IT consulting firms came into existence. What these firms exactly do? They were able to bridge that rapidly growing gap up very efficiently, but up to only a certain limit. Why only up to a certain limit? Because these firms had a very technological centric approach to bridge that gap. But with the business processes becoming more complex, there was a need for a business-centric approach. So between 1990s to 2000, the functional consultant role came into existence. Now when this role came into existence, the functional consultants were able to understand the business processes and configure them into these software solutions. And from 2000 onwards, the functional consultant role gain very much importance. Why they gain the importance? Because the businesses were seeking professionals who can understand both the intricacies of the business operations and complicated software solutions and ensure a harmonious integration between these two to ensure that the business runs toward the success. So this is a brief history about how and when functional consulting came into existence. Now that we have talked about the history of functional consulting, so with evolution, there is no smooth transition. Even if you say when there is a transition happening from a system to another, the end product is very good, but there are many challenges that one has to face in that transition. So it was not like functional consultant didn't face any challenges. So let's start with the first scenario for the challenges that a functional consultant faces. So as you can see here, Emily is a functional consultant working on a very complex project. So while the implementation was going on, Emily faced few challenges. In those few challenges, she came to know that the project delivery timelines were being delayed. Now with the delayed timelines, the project budget was being overconsumed. Okay? And now with the delays in the timelines, there was a resistance from the end user for the acceptance of that technology. And with the resistance and timelines being delayed, the stakeholders were giving a pushback to Emily for the project. So these are the few challenges that Emily was facing while implementation of that project. So let's move on with the solutions, right? So you all here are right about the solutions that you identified for these challenges. I have divided the solutions into two parts. And those two parts are risk management and change management. The risk management, how do Emily's tackles the risks? For the first thing, that was the timelines were being delayed because there were risks. Some of the risks were seen, some were not seen. Some of the risks can be identified and some not identified. So what steps can Emily take to resolve that things? The first step that Emily can take is early identification of risk, where Emily can have a roundtable conference with the stakeholders of the project. Then again, the external and the internal stakeholders should be included in that discussion. Now with that discussion happening, all of them can realize the internal and the external risk that can be identified at a very early stage. Now, there comes a point where they have identified few of the risks, because the not identified risk is something that we cannot think of. It can come at any point of time. For the risks that have been identified, Emily can plan a risk mitigation strategy and contingency plan for those risks. In those contingency plan and risk mitigation strategies, she can think of the action that the team can take for those when those risks are materialized, correct? And what impact those actions are going to have on that project. Is it going to change any requirement or functionality? Is it going to impact the timelines of that project? And all of them can be communicated to the stakeholders, so there is a smooth processing and smooth build of the product that they are trying to build. And there's one more point, quantitative analysis. For this quantitative analysis, for all the risks that have been identified, Emily can take an approach where she assigns some values to the identified risk. That can be based on the severity of the risk, that can be based on any other parameters. And when these risks have been given a value or given a high risk, low risk parameters, she can then take that course of action. We have change management. The resistance that we were talking about, the people are when the technology is being changed. We all would agree here that some of us or all of us follow a routine. Some of us go for a walk or gym in the morning. Some of us have a habit of watching Netflix or Amazon after we go from our job. So that becomes our routine. Now, when there is even a minor or a major change in that routine, we feel uncomfortable about it, right? For some point of time. Now, to overcome that thing, similarly, if a person is working in a job where he or she has been doing or performing his job through a set routine, and now the management comes and says, okay, after 1 month, we are going to change this. What you have been doing will change the way. So there would be a resistance in adopting that technology. And when the project is delayed, that resistance may increase. The first thing that Emily can do is stakeholder engagement. In stakeholder engagement, I don't just mean the business owners, but the business users also, to include them. Maybe head of departments of several departments, they can sit together and Emily can explain them how the technology or how the product that they are developing is going to help them. After explaining how that is going to help them, she can identify the roles and the workflows of that company. When she has identified and documented those roles and the workflows of a company, she can identify the point where those changes are going to be made and at what time those changes are going to come in the system. So after have identified those points, who all are going to be impacted by those changes. So she can efficiently convey those changes to those users and tell them how smoothly whatever the process they have been doing. So let's just say they have been doing all the processes in Excel and they have been handling those Excel sheets through print or through email to their management. But with this automated changes, now they just have to put in the records, but they don't have to mail anything or they don't have to send printouts to anyone. Their management just enters into the org and they see everything that they have entered. So this is how she can convey how effectively the change is going to be done. Okay? So these are the few steps that Emily can take for these challenges. Now, when we are discussing challenges, they are not subjected to only these challenges. There can be many that a functional consultant faces when he or she is doing his or her job. So in an hour-long session, I don't think we can cover every challenge that they face, but we'll cover few of them and then we'll move forward. In next scenario, you can see Sarah is a functional consultant here. And this is a very easy one. I think you all can find the solution to it. So in this, Sarah is finding difficulty in internal alignment. So the internal stakeholders of the project, that is the dev and the QA team, are misaligned. How they are misaligned? The dev team didn't understand the requirement that was told by Sarah. They understood it, but they approached it in a very different way. Okay? So they were building something, and when they deviated from this scope, that also gave deviation to the QA team, because something that was built by dev team was tested in the same manner by the QA team, and the functionality was different. So that affected a surge in the defects found. And with all this happening, obviously, the project timeline is going to be impacted. Correct? So what steps Sarah can take is, first, CB told that they can set up a regular meeting where the dev team and the functional consultant, Sarah, can sit together. Now, when they sit together, Sarah can clearly tell them the requirement which has been asked for, what functionality has to be built, what product at the end is required. If there is some misalignment or the dev team is unable to understand those requirements, they can ask Sarah for the clarification on those requirements so that they don't build something, any other thing that is not required. Okay? One of the most important things that I myself think is very important are the joint sprint planning sessions. Well, this joint sprint planning includes everyone. That includes project managers, the dev team, the functional consultants, the QA as well. Why these sessions are planning? The sprint planning is done on the basis of requirements prioritizing. So let's just say the dev team was included in building the opportunity object. But 2 weeks or 2 days before, Sarah had a conversation with the business stakeholders, and they told that they want to reprioritize the opportunity object and they want to set up the sales cycle first. So what happened? Dev team was continuing on the building opportunities object, but the requirement had reprioritized to sales lifecycle. So in the joint sprint planning session, these all things can come up, and the task can be prioritized according to the requirement so that the timelines are never missed and things go as planned. Now, the next step, the continuous feedback loop. The feedbacks are a two-way thing where Sarah and the dev team sits together the dev team can give feedback to Sarah, where let's just say there comes a requirement which the dev team thinks needs to be pushed back to the client. That this is not so much required and we need to push back this requirement, and this will have an impact on our project delivery or project timelines. So Sarah can take that feedback and she can go back to the business stakeholders and convey the same. Similarly, if Sarah thinks that dev is not understanding the scope clearly and they are deviating from the course, and that is also taking a toll on the timelines, so she can give that feedback to the dev team as well. So this is a two-way thing that they have to take on. From the QA side, well, if somebody would have attended our previous session of Tech Brews, they would have known how important role the QA team plays in any project delivery. Okay? So Sarah needs to have alignment with the QA team on what exactly they need to do. The first step, that is very rarely taken, but an important step, is user refinement, user stories refinement. So a collaborative session on that. What Sarah here can do is take 2-3 user stories. They can be from any previous project or they can be from the same project, and she can ask the QA team what exactly is missing in this user story or what exactly needs to be more explained in this user story, so they have a clear testing approach. So this is one thing. The other thing, test planning workshops. Now let's just say the QA team starts testing whatever has been built by the dev team, but they had a very different mindset in approaching that functionality. That happy path was straight, but they were going down, then up, and then straight. So in this test planning workshop, Sarah can tell them the exact approach that the QA should take so that they never deviate from the right course. Okay? Then another important step, issue tracking system. So we all test stories, the QA teams test stories, they log bugs on the stories, but consider a central repository for those bugs. Not only the bugs that were found by the QA team, but when a functional consultant runs end-to-end testing, he or she may also find some bugs. Now when these all bugs are at a one place, so the functional consultant and the team can identify the major bug that they need to address at priority, and if there is a timeline crunch, they can identify those bugs. Those can be catered after some point of time. And the most important thing are regular retrospectives. Regular retrospectives calls should be done after every sprint. That is the best case scenario. But with time crunch in every project or fast moving project, that cannot happen, or that rarely happens. So if not at the end of every sprint, maybe at the end of every 2 sprint or 3 sprint. And even if that is not achieved, the a retrospective session should happen at the end of the project, where every team members should sit down and discuss what went wrong, where they went wrong, and the points where everything was done fabulously should be appreciated by the team. So regular retrospectives are very important at this point of time. So now these were few challenges, and I would say the best appropriate solutions to it. There can be many solutions to them, right? You can approach them in a very different way. The other person can approach these challenges in a very different way. So they can have many solutions, but these were the few that a functional consultant can follow. After this, I'll call upon my co-speaker Ripshita to take you all forward with this session.
Again, a very good morning everyone and a happy new year. I hope this year brings a lot of opportunities for you all. So, before starting with the actual content, I want you all to relate with one statement which you might have heard about functional consulting. People say that, what does a functional consultant do? Followed by the answer, nothing. They have nothing to do. They just relax. But when I hear to these words, the inner me always say that, oh my God, I will be the luckiest one if I have a job like this. But the reality of life is surrounded with client's problem, internal team problem, requirement is finalized, then again changed by the client. So if we have so many of problems, how can people think that we have nothing to do? So let's just ignore those people and let me tell you some secret to reduce these problems. I won't commit that these problems will totally cut off from your life, but implementing these as your practice will definitely reduce it. So let's just not waste more time and we begin with the actual content. Roles and responsibilities as a functional consultant we should play. So our initial point of contact will be the sales team. The sales team will provide us the high level of requirement about client, their industry and the challenges they are facing. Now people will say, if your requirement gathering is done by a sales team, then what you are doing? Bear with me guys, I will tell you what we will do. So high level of requirement is provided by sales team. Now our task is to do the homework of stocking and inspecting. This time we are not supposed to stock our crush profile, but we have to stock our client's profile. We have to find out the ways from where we can research more about client. Because we have the high level of requirement, now we need to find the ways from where we can find find what challenges they are facing, their industry, and can get more about them. So by doing this, you will have several of questions roaming around in your mind. At that moment, try to maintain a proper document for those questionnaires. I won't say try to, just make a proper document for those questions which you have. Those questions will start with how, why, what, when. So why I'm emphasizing to maintain a document, because there are some smart people, they think that we have good memory and we can recall while going over the call. But when they go over the call, out of 5 questions, only 2 they ask from the client and rest 3 are somewhere dumped into their mind. So don't make this as your practice. Maintain a proper document and also share it before you jump over the call with client. So your client can also come prepared to answer those questions. And that too will not waste your and your client's time. Now we have done our research, we have done our homework, we have shared the questionnaire sheet. Now is the time when we have to connect with client. Now is the time where we have to connect with client and we have to deep dive into the requirements and challenges the client is facing. The time for discovery calls. In these discovery calls, you have to be attentive and you have to listen what challenges your client is facing. What pain points are there in their business and how best you and your team can provide to make their business more good. I am saying to be attentive because when you are not attentive during those calls, you might lost half of the problem and you will create mess there only. So being attentive during those calls is really important. The clarity is really important of requirement. Ask open questions. Ask client what challenges they are facing and what solution they need from us and what best we can provide to them. So discovery calls are very important. Then the one most important thing here is business process and customer journey and persona mapping. This is the point where we sometimes show our laziness and do not follow this. But actually, my dear friend, this is a most important step to follow because it gives clarity to client. Our client is not technical. They don't know what technical terms we are using. So by giving them this proper neat and clean diagram, business process, they will understand from where the flow is starting and where it is ending. And see, we humans have a problem. We always get attracted to good images, good pictures rather than the text. Do you guys agree on this? Example, see this slide. Isn't it looking boring? Full of text. And if similarly I convert this slide into this, isn't it looking good, attractive, right? We know from where the flow is starting and where it will get end. And if you give that text format, the text document to the client, they will read only 5 lines and rest other lines will be assumed by them. Don't let your client live in assumptions. Ensure we create this. So our discovery calls are done, our business process has been done. Now is time to do construction. The construction, which we always hear the term bridging the gap. To whom we are bridging the gap? We need to bridge the gap between business terms and technical terms. Here, we need to align our internal team what requirement client has. So at that moment, how this can be achieved? This can be achieved by writing user stories. And when it comes to user stories should always be clear. The clarity is key. Because when you are not clear with your user stories, something else will be built. So clarity is really, really important. Make sure your user stories are concise, small, and easy to understand. They will work as script for your internal team, client, and of course for you also. Break down the complex task into the small digestible pieces. So everyone should be on same page. When user stories are created, make sure that we prioritize them. How to prioritize them? Ensure that the critical tasks are addressed first, then a step-by-step approach, and of course that will be a mutual decision of your client, your internal team, and your PM, that which task should be catered first and which can be taken later for later sprints. But prioritization is important, and of course requirement sign-off is really, really, really important. Don't miss this, else client might change after. So client sign-off is important. Like user story has an acceptance criteria, and that acceptance criteria, if not there in the user story, that is considered as incomplete user story. So I stands for independent, which says that user story written should not rely to other stories. That should have some own value. That should be independent. N refers to negotiable, means that should be flexible. If there needs to be any changes further, that should be flexible, that can be changed, because of course everyone should be on same page. Everyone should agree what you have written. V describes the value that when your team built actually, reading those user story, if they build the functionality, that should give some value to the business. E stands for estimable, the timeline which your team has taken to build that functionality. You should also need to track that on user stories. S is small. Of course, user stories should be small, concise. That should be that small that it can cover in one iteration. And T is testable. Like user story should be that clear that your QA team, when they read it out, they have proper understanding what negative testing they need to do and what positive scenarios they need to consider. So that should be clearly understood by them. Now our team has started building the dream into the reality. We have to manage stakeholders. We have to get on the calls. We have to demonstrate what has been built, and we have to update them about the progress, what has the project progress. At this moment, effective communication plays an important role, where you need to properly communicate everything, that your client isn't in assumptions. Make sure that a client never live in assumptions. They have clear understanding what is the progress of project. And there will some situation come when our understanding as a functional consultant and our client understanding didn't match. We don't agree on the same point. So at that situation, never point fingers to your client. Never say that you asked it, I did it, I don't know. Your client will say, I pay for that, and you say that I don't know, I'm not going to do anything. This is a wrong behavior. Never show this behavior in front of your client. Always at that moment be smart, find out the way from where you can overcome that situation and how peacefully you can solve that. And now some people say that when we go and we show the build functionality to the client, they give us the additional requirement. It's okay, it happens. Client will give you additional requirements, but then you have to take it as a note, you have to take it as an opportunity and think how you can cater it. Maybe as a change request or a small thing that you can fix for them. This is again not your solely decision. This will be decided among the team, PM, client, and then you. Don't claim anything in front of a client without having agreement with all. Okay, let's move forward where we need to act as a client. Where we need to act as a client, we need to see that our system is working as expected. We need to do end-to-end testing. Why I am saying we need to do this? Of course, this is the task for QA team and they will look into the all technical part. But as a functional consultant, it's again our responsibility to check this is working as expected. Because if we rush on the call claiming that everything is working without even having a check, we might find some unpleasant surprises behind the back. And trust me guys, Goa dream will become our dream now. Goa trip will become our dream. So don't miss this step and ensure we have end-to-end testing. And if any bug or issue comes, we assign it to the development team. They will fix it. Then we have to again test it until it works fine. And then everything is built from our side, everything has been done. We now need to assign it to the client. They will do their testing with the help of test scripts, which QA will provide. They will have a check and they will of course provide us the feedbacks. Ensure that those feedbacks are addressed and configured as expected. What do you think? Our responsibilities are over? No. Now we need to play the role of teacher. Teacher, where we need to make our client understood how to navigate through the system. Because of course the client is new to the system, they don't know how to use it. They might struggle using it. So provide them proper documentation, conduct training session, from that they can have good knowledge how to use this system. This is important, and of course client is paying the tuition fee. So we need to be properly ensure that client is not only understood how to navigate the system, how to use the functionality, but they are also confident about their business they are running there. So this is an important step. So we have seen all roles and responsibilities as a functional consultant we all need to follow. The one most important step here is if we can only follow these responsibilities when we have this good communication. Good communication skill is very, very, very important. As a functional consultant, we should always stay calm, never show aggression in front of your client while talking. Stay calm, understand what challenges your client is facing. See, we will meet different peoples in our life. We will meet different people in our life who have different culture, different generation, different abilities, different skill set, and that might cause a barrier. That might cause a communication barrier. But again, as a functional consultant, it's our responsibility to start with a good conversation. Never ask a direct question, what problems you are having? No, that's not a good way to start a conversation. Always show that you are welcoming and approachable so that your client can have trust on you. And trust is a key in every relationship. I hope you agree with it. So this is important. We have seen all the roles and responsibilities as a functional consultant we need to play. Now let's see some best practices which we can follow carrying out our responsibilities. The first one, client relationship. As I already said, relationship building is a key. Make sure we have good terms with our client. Now the next is no gray matter. There no room for assumptions. Be clear with your responsibilities, challenges and everything. Never assume anything. Like if you have any problem, you think that you need to ask this question, ask open-ended question from your client, but have clarity on it. Do not live in assumptions. Client sign off. Again, imagine your client asks you for SUV and you end up building the truck. Truck and SUV are both different vehicles, different look. And also you being smarter, convincing the client on the call, I have given you the big stairs. I have given you the big wheels, open area where you can have fresh air. But guys, client asked for a car. And you end up building the truck. Both different, right? So make sure at this situation we have the client confirmation. At this situation show that me and my client was not on the same page. And client disagree that I didn't ask for it. So if we have client sign off, client won't, in further situations, client won't disagree upon it. Client sign off is very, very important. Make sure we have on requirement or documents, stories which we write, everything, every important thing which we before start building the functionality. Then stay updated with industry knowledge. As discussed, maybe discussed why industry knowledge is needed. Because our client is thinking that we are the experts. We have every knowledge. So for that expertise, we need to do learning. We need to do continuous learning. Detailed documentation is the last and the very, very important best practice, which might sound lazy to some people here, like who will write documentation? It is boring, I know, but it is important. If you will have this in your practice, this is important. This is a valuable asset when your client, like client audits, client reviewing and future planning. Trust me, my dear friends, you will have that hero moment when client will say that I didn't ask for it. And you will seamlessly open the screen and show that you did ask for it. So at that moment, you need to maintain a proper detailed documentation. That is very, very important. And also ensure that your team too maintain it and in the same format you are doing. So I hope from Monday onwards, when we work on the project, we have all these things in our mind.
So that was all today from our session. Thank you very much. Thank you for being an active participant.